Hey everyone, I'm Scott Cohen from the CET Sandbox, the U.S.-Israel Innovation Hub on critical and emerging technologies, and welcome to another edition of 10 Minutes On, our regular series featuring U.S. national security experts and members of the defense industrial base, aimed at helping Israeli founders understand and access the U.S. market. We're joined today by Sara Scharf, who's Director of External Innovation and Tech Scouting at BAE Systems, which is the $34 billion defense, aerospace, and security company. So, welcome, Sara.
Thank you.
Thrilled to have you. All right, a quick background. You started your career doing nano micro work at the Aerospace Corporation. Tell us about that.
Sure. So after receiving my PhD in chemistry, I had many opportunities, but I was always sort of drawn to defense, aerospace, national security type work. And so yeah, my first career, as you mentioned, was with the Aerospace Corporation, which is it was called an FFRDC, a federally funded research and development center under the Air Force. And so it was R&D work, working in a lab, developing new materials, also doing consulting for the Air Force, meeting with some of their contractors and companies that were building different satellites, and then advising them on if they had any issues with their materials and things that they were building. So, yeah, it was a great start to my career. I was there about 6 years. So.
Great. And then you went off to the Naval Surface Warfare Center. What was the focus there?
Yes. So this other opportunity came up that I thought was a good chance to try some new skills while still keeping my chemistry background. So it was primarily helping the Navy Marine Corps with their energetics, their munitions, their explosives. So and it was fun. Helping things go boom or also not go boom when they're not supposed to. And so it was I had the opportunity to, for 1 year as a contractor, but then become a government civilian employee and spent a few years there doing reliability testing on various materials. And then also, we were doing auditing of some of various customers and contractors and going in and watching processes and how things were made and making sure everything was being made properly. So, yeah, that was another good opportunity that I got to work on for a few years.
That's cool. All right. So, for those who don't know, tell us about BAE.
Yes. So actually, I will briefly mention another stint I had. So I did go from government, a civilian employee, to a startup myself. The two very extreme ends. And this startup was a technology that came out of UT Austin here in Austin, Texas, which is where I am now. And so I spent about 2 years doing that. It was business development. I realized startup life was not for me, but I love the startup ecosystem and innovation, and so this role came up, which is BAE Systems, as you mentioned, a big defense prime contractor internationally, and the role was to help BAE Systems connect with startups and small businesses. So I thought it was like the perfect opportunity of my background in government and startup, and yet to be back on the kind of on the government side, but contracting now. So the BAE Systems Global, so the headquarters is in UK. That's called BAE Systems PLC. BAE Systems Inc. is a US subsidiary. There is also a large aggregate of BAE in Australia, India, possibly a few other countries as well. So BAE Systems here in the US has four sectors. One sector is platforms and services. So they make army tanks, they make some munitions, they make some various other ground vehicles and weapons. And then we have another sector called intelligence and security. Some commercial work, some government work there, cybersecurity, all things intelligence requiring high levels of classification. And then our third sector is what was formerly called Ball Aerospace that BAE Systems acquired a couple of years ago. So that is now our space and mission systems sector. We weren't involved in aerospace that much prior to that. It was more ground systems. And then the fourth sector, which is the one that I reside in, is called electronic systems. So anything electronics, electronic warfare, microelectronics. And then there is some C4ISR work in there. We have about 7 business areas, each doing various different type of work along there. And then I primarily, though, report to what is our R&D group, which is called Fast Labs. And so our R&D groups are the ones really trying to innovate and look for next generation technology. They're the ones that are connecting a lot more with startups and small businesses. And so we primarily report to them. But many times we engage with companies that might already be better suited for one of the business areas. So we try to connect them directly to the business area, or they might even be more of a fit for one of the other sectors that I just mentioned. And so even though we don't technically report to those sectors, we do at least try to make connections just to help BAE whenever we can across the board.
And tell us about your role. Do you have like a regional focus in Texas? Is it kind of sector focus? Like where's the general focus?
Right. So there's only a few of us that do this role. One of the other Tech Scouts is on the East Coast, and I am here in Texas. So my role is primarily here because Texas has become a recent hotspot for defense innovation and startups. Army Futures Command, now called Army, I think it's like T2Com. I forget the exact acronym. They just changed themselves to a month or two ago. They reside here in Austin. There's a lot of other innovation units. It was called AFWorks, which is under the Air Force. They have some people here in Austin. DIU Defense Innovation Unit. They have a few people here in Austin. Marine Corps Innovation Unit. They have a person here in Austin. There's also a couple of other innovation areas. One's called Capital Factory, which is the BAE does have a corporate partnership with them. And Army Applications Lab resides in that building. And there's just a lot of others. I think there's a lot of other defense innovation if you come here for any of our events or just in general. And so that's why my role resides here. But yeah, I do travel. Maybe I'm sort of the Midwest to West Coast representative. And so some of it's geographic, but then also some of the Tech Scouts, we have different focus areas as well. Certain things groups that we report to, but we do also try to just have general knowledge of what everybody is working on.
That's great. Are there any particular technologies or capabilities you are scouting for or that BAE is particularly interested in right now?
Yes. So since I fall under the electronic system sector, that's more of what I'm specifically looking for. We do have a list of very general focus areas. We do have some of them published externally. So maybe if I can, I'll provide you a list or a link after that you can share with the participants. And so it's more of a detailed list of some of the different product lines, sort of what you would like imagine, like the different research groups within our R&D. So within our R&D group, we do have 4 research groups, and I can give you a little bit of an overview and what, maybe get an idea of what they're looking for. One is our sensing technologies. So anything sensing related, EOIR, some laser sensing technologies. We do some crystal growth fabrication labs here. They're doing some photonic sensing work, things like that. And then another group is our autonomy and AIML group. That's actually the other Tech Scout. So I can't speak too much to what they're doing, but think large sets of data processing, signal processing, things like that. And then our third group is our RF cyber EW group, offensive defensive cyber. So not enterprise cyber, not just we need to implement some cybersecurity system for BAE's computers. It's more on the edge cyber within platforms themselves. And then our fourth sector is microelectronics. So we do have a foundry where we process some gallium nitride and gallium arsenide wafers, so semiconductor work, and we do some other microelectronic innovation, and we do have some commercial products that are sold right out of there directly to some of its consumers, some of its defense. We like to think of ourselves sometimes, even though we're a prime, we also sometimes think of ourselves as just a really large supplier. So let's say Boeing builds an aircraft, they will buy some of our electronics, some of the things that we excel in. So we'll even be a subcontractor to a lot of other primes out there. And so that's where we think our specialty resides. So you don't necessarily see our name across large, airplanes, but our components are in there, and a lot of other systems like that too. So as far as very specific things they look at year to year, it doesn't change. I mean, sometimes they don't even know what's out there. So I like to think that while we maybe have certain focus areas like photonic sensing or things like that, it might even there's some technology that potentially is better than what we're working on, or we didn't even know exist. Is out there. We try to connect them internally.
Right. And so does BAE kind of work with early stage startups? And if so, like what has to be true? Like how high is the bar set? Is it, TRL 5 and above? Are there certain rules? Like what kind of walk us through that?
Okay, so some defense prime contractors here in the U.S. do have a venture arm. They do investing. BAE Systems does not. So if you do try to look it up on internet searches, you might see some really old examples. BAE in the UK maybe does a little bit, but it's very, very minimal and very far apart. So we don't invest in companies. We don't take any equity. When we work with companies, it's partnerships and collaborations. So sometimes it's internal, maybe some internal research, and we can use some internal research funds to do some collaboration with a company. We're not necessarily we're trying to figure out how to work together. Yeah, we will make their product better too, but then that gets into issues of if we're helping them specifically develop their technology just for them, then there's issues about who owns the intellectual property and so on. So I let the scientists and engineers and our lawyers and all that work that out about how can we work together. But so a lot of it is collaborations. It's going after big contracts with the government, with some other defense, non-defense entities. We try to make some of these small businesses and startups subcontractors to us. And so as far as TRL, yeah, five's a good number. I mean, four is a little low. We kind of like to introduce the companies when you have more than just an idea, because sometimes some of these opportunities that we're pursuing take a really long time. And so if you've already got something ready to go, the problem is we may not have an opportunity that we're bidding on or we're working on that's ready to go now that matches up perfectly. So we do try to introduce these companies earlier, TRL 3, 4, in hopes that at least our internal people are made aware of what is out there, and maybe an opportunity comes up next year or sometime in the future. And then that's the time when to then start discussing opportunities to work together on a program. Once you get a lot higher, I think, I don't know, maybe TRL 7 or higher, you could potentially just go right to one of our business areas to work with them. And so, we'll make those connections too. So we do have a small, so our focus as technology scouts is really more startups and early stage technology. If you're a commercial supplier where you can sell to us, you've got some parts, some SKU numbers, you can sell to our competitors, we will refer you on to our small business office. And they're really just more working through the process of how do you be a supplier to us and sell us parts, not so much be a subcontractor on a program. So we have multiple ways we engage.
That totally makes sense. Are there any kind of examples of successful startup interactions you guys have had recently, or things that have come out of those?
Sure. Yes. So, um, I don't know which programs I can mention. There's one or two out there on the internet. There was a opportunity a few years ago with a company called Gen XCom, and it wasn't an opportunity that BAE was going to pursue. We didn't think we necessarily had everything that would have been required for that opportunity. But this startup that we had been engaging with for a while came to us and said, "Hey, we think we can partner with you." We went on to co. I forget if they were or they were the lead or we were the lead. I don't remember, but we went on to bid on this opportunity with them and won that. And so there are sometimes opportunities where a small business startup even comes to us and said, "Hey, I saw this out there. I
Hmm.
can do this. Maybe you can do that. Let's do that together." Or I saw this solicitation drop. Are you guys pursuing that? And so, sometimes those are great because it's not just us always trying to see what things we're working on. So we've had some surprising engagements where some of these startups have come to us with opportunities that we can maybe even support them. We will be a sub if we think it's technology that will be beneficial to us in the future. On a very, very low level, we will. So I know a lot of these companies, if they're Israeli based, and don't have a US entity, they may not be able to win what's called SBIR awards or small business awards in the US. But if any of them do and are eligible for SBIRs, or maybe even there are some things that they're bidding on, that a letter of support could be included with their submissions. We do letters of support sometimes if the technology aligns with something that BAE is working on. If it's something that BAE is, maybe it's defense, but it's something BAE doesn't even do at all, that's a little bit harder. But low level letters of support, will even be a subcontractor to, we try to put you on one of our programs. Yeah, just there's a couple of things right now that we have won, that a startup that we brought in is a subcontractor on, and so we like to think that we can't put a dollar amount on. We don't try to put a dollar amount on this specific small business got this dollar amount, this specific business got this dollar amount. Sometimes we like to include even the whole opportunity, because we like to think maybe we wouldn't have won it if we didn't have the good partners that we had, or we just made our solicitation much stronger with these partnerships and collaborations. Because I really think a lot of these opportunities and government and other customers we're working with, they want to see more collaborations and partnerships. They want to see startups and small businesses that can move faster, because primes are kind of known to be slow. And so I think that it just makes everything better for what we're working on. I mean, overall, I don't even know, maybe, $50-100 million worth of contracts at BAE over the years. We've been able to put a startup or small business that the technology scouting team, specifically brought in. I mean, sometimes there are small businesses or startups that connected directly with a scientist. Maybe they met them at a conference or something like that. We do help manage those partnerships if they want. Like, maybe the scientist doesn't have connections to other business areas, or maybe they need some letters of support. So we not only go out and find companies, but sometimes we just help manage the ones that are brought to us internally. And so our role is, going back to a little bit about our role again, is a lot more externally facing, a lot more being champions for these companies internally. Every once in a while pinging our internal people to say, like, hey, is this anything there that this might be a fit for? If they say not right now, sometimes we'll ping them again later. And so it's being that internal champion for all these companies that we meet.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Like, I think we have time for maybe one more question, which is like, any kind of recommendations, tips, or guidance for Israeli founders that kind of would like to work with BAE in the US?
Sure. Yes. So it does make it a little harder without some sort of U.S. entity presence. It's due to what's called ITAR restrictions, international traffic in arms regulations, and so because a lot of our opportunities are a lot more collaborative, we have worked with international companies that definitely there are some. It just makes it a little harder in some of those calls. It's sort of strained about what we can discuss. So yeah, if you were a supplier, you were selling us a part, that's easy. So, I encourage some of these companies to try to form a U.S. presence or entity. I mean, I've met a few that have done that successfully. And then not only does that help engagement with us, but then that helps their engagement with other U.S. Potential U.S. primes and contractors and awards that they can win. Some other ways to offer encouragement. I mean, I will say, I have started to see a few other VC funds pop up where their thesis is, we want to invest in good Israeli tech, international tech. I mean, I know it really ebbs and flows every year, how much venture capital money is going into which sector, how much total. I mean, I feel like I'm seeing more and more defense in the last few years. So that's good. More dual use, more hard tech, things like that. And so, obviously, if you haven't been out to, there's some really good conferences. There's a few good ones in Austin, I like to think. I'm sure there's some good ones out, in the Massachusetts area. There's a few others that I've seen good ones in the US that's a good opportunity to come and engage with some of these companies. Ones that really focus on innovation. You may get a little bit if you try to come out to a really big Army conference called AUSA. That might be you're going to meet thousands and thousands of people, but making it over here when you can to try to meet potential customers and face-to-face interaction.
That's great. Sarah, I think we're up against it, but thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Again, that was Sara Scharf, Director of External Innovation and Tech Scouting at BAE Systems. Join us for additional live, in-person, and virtual programming with the U.S. Defense Industrial Base by visiting the CET Sandbox. That's cetsandbox.com. Thank you and goodbye.